Honestly unbalanced.
Okay, let me set the scene a little bit. I'm looking back at old photos of myself and the amazing stuff I could do, which is a bit of a curse of social media. It like pops it with your highlights. Oh, I can't do that anymore. I don't look like that. Don't look that good.
Ah,
I can't smolder like that. And you had something similar because you did the famous Equinox video years
mm,
ago, and recently you kind of had your reaction to it on social media, and
mhm,
part of what you said was, oh, actually, it's a little bit sad in a sense because you kind of know that you can't do those things, and you said you don't look like this anymore, etc., etc. So, what's your thoughts on that? On having like our legacy on social media in such detail and being able
mm.
to so quickly look back at the you that was.
No. Do you know how old I am? You don't ask a woman that. No, I'm kidding. Of course, it brings up a lot, and what I'm not that old, but when I think about it, it makes me reflect on the grace of aging and to how important it is. And having grown up with an Asian mom, she didn't teach me that. She taught me the opposite: stay young, look young, spend money on Botox and all of this. So um, I try to look at it and be proud of what I've accomplished and what I could do, but at the same time, not allow it to pressure me to be that. Because the truth is, I have become so much more than just the things I can do. Like a mother, like a person who is working on loving themselves and sharing that love with the people that they love, an entrepreneur in my industry. So there's a lot of great about it, but it's not easy. We have the mantras or the things that we tell ourselves, and then there are the feelings or emotions really that come up. So yeah, of course I think, wow, I used to be able to do these crazy things and in the Equinox video, but that was at a time when I had one kid. I was sharing 50-50 custody. I was in, so that gave me a lot of time to myself. I was in a new relationship with like the hottest yoga teacher in LA, Dice, and taking his classes like 3 times a day. So of course I could like press on one finger or whatever. I just don't have that time anymore, nor do I really when I try to push my body in that way, it doesn't feel good. So there's a balance.
Can I ask a follow up to that, if that's okay? And that is just about kind of comparison and the futility of comparison. It could be comparison to your former self. It could be comparison to other people. And I wrote a little post about that the other day. The idea that you've got no idea what circumstance someone is living through. Like, are they the person that
Mm,
can go to 3 class of the day because they live in a retreat center, or are they
mm,
retired but have all the money in the world and can just train all day? So how, I guess, how do you navigate your students through
mm.
comparison? Because inevitably, like, you can do cool stuff. I've seen on your trainings people do cool stuff. Some people might be drawn in because, of course, there's more to it than that, but there is a visual cool stuff. How would you encourage people not to compare themselves to others in a world, especially now, where that is so easy to do?
I think it's more so that I remind them that it's part of being human, to look at something and allow it, or to look at something and feel bad about yourself, but it's projection. So it's actually what I teach my children, and I also teach, myself, because I have those feelings too, and that I try to relate to my students, which is, if something makes you feel bad about yourself, try to find a reason to be happy for that person. And I have a pretty good personal experience example when I was pregnant with my son 10 years ago now. It was right about that time where I was really, really strong and really focused on physical practice. And when like Instagram started to be a huge thing, and I took time off and was pregnant and then had my baby. And I really enjoyed that. But as I was coming out of that, I started to see people on social media getting millions of followers, doing handstands and doing all these crazy things. And immediately I hated them. I was like, this bitch. And it was not, you know, who's this bitch? But it wasn't a kind thing. And it wasn't something that I was proud of when I looked in the mirror. And I did exactly what I'm teaching now, which is I said, that's not going to get me anywhere. It's not motivation for me. So I'm going to either stop looking at it if it triggers me, it has nothing to do with that person, or I'm just going to find when I see it, when I scroll and I see someone's success, I'm going to be happy for them and try to let it motivate me to do my own thing, to, forge my own path of whatever success is. So there's that. There's either don't look at it, to answer your question, if it makes you feel bad, or be inspired by it. Find a way to be inspired by it. It's so important that people understand that they have the tools to shape their experience. What we feel as a reaction is just that. It's a reaction. So what are you going to do with it? Are you going to sit in it and let it shape how you experience the world? Or are you going to turn it into a positive somehow?
I really like the point you make about how, feeling the more uncomfortable feelings. I think a lot of the time we try and push those feelings away and we put shame on ourselves for feeling the more uncomfortable feelings. But you say that it's just human to have all of the, spectrum of emotions. And you talk on your Instagram about mum guilt as well. And this is something that obviously I experience a lot of. So how do you navigate mum guilt and not let it lead the way? You talk about, not letting these uncomfortable feelings kind of lead you, just let them coexist with the other feelings. That's quite a difficult thing to do.
That's exactly, it's the coexisting. It's, there's a fine line between lying to yourself and using mantras and manifestation. It's like, wait, am I actually, like, how do I do the work? And mom guilt is one of those things that is always kind of there. It's kind of like insecurity. I grew up with a lot of insecurity. You talked initially about having things on social media, and having it all there to show. I became a pop star when I was 12. So not only is all my yoga stuff on social media, so is all the stuff since 12 years old, granted in a different country, in a different language, but it's all there. And I can look back at myself being 12 and being a total idiot throughout my teens, right? But the mom guilt piece, it's just like that. It's like always there, but it's how much you feed it that matters, and what you actually lead with. So, if I'm going to, I don't know where mom guilt comes up for you, but for me, it's in self-care. It's like, oh, I guess I don't need to go to this class because I feel, for myself, I feel terrible leaving. Or even bigger than that, I don't need to go on this girls' trip because it's just easier emotionally to stay. But then the choice to go is also so important. The thing I can tell you about mom guilt is that it doesn't go away. My daughter's 19 and I still have it. She just asked me to do something insane, like fly to New York for one night to help her move out of her apartment in the middle of a time where I don't have the time. And I'm like, I'm going to make this happen. And I'm like, I'm going to die if this happens, but I'm going to make it happen. And my tendency is to be like, move the world for her. But is it healthy for me? So it never goes away. It's just about making those decisions for the right reasons and knowing that at some point you'll be able to explain it to your kids. And if you can explain it to yourself, then you can explain it to your kids well. And it starts really early. With my son, I always told him, mommy's going to go to this yoga class because when I go, I have time for me, and then I'm happy and I'm fulfilled. And then I come back and I feel like I can be present with you. And now at 10, he's like, Mom, I really think you need to go to yoga today.
Bless him.
Because, or he's like, Mom, right now I need to sit on the toilet for the next 30 minutes with the door shut with my iPad, and I just need me time. He's a man already. He's like, do not come into my toilet time.
Do you feel like guilt has a purpose? Because I look at all the other emotions and I see how these other emotions can serve us in some way, whether they're, good or bad. I don't like to label them, but I can never really understand why we have guilt, like how it helps us, if it does.
Oh, it's so interesting that you asked that. And I love the way you're thinking. you know, parenting has been the greatest growth gift for my personal self growth. And this piece of it actually came from parenting my son, either through I think it was a meeting with a therapist. He said, there's a difference between shame and guilt, and why in parenting your kids, that guilt can be helpful or even necessary, but not shame. Shame makes a child or a person feel like they're inherently bad, that they are here just a bad person. You don't ever want to shame yourself, your kid. You don't want to feel ashamed or to not let it stay that way. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
Shame on you, that sort of thing. But guilt allows for a person to try to practice accountability for what they've done or how they've made someone feel or whatever it may be. So I think there's a purpose for guilt. If you're feeling guilty, that means you have an opportunity to change that either in the future, right? Not repeat the same mistakes, or to reconcile that experience that caused that guilt through an apology, through, you know, practicing that responsibility and so on. Oh, someone's here. Does that make sense? I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, it does.
So
Thank
yeah,
you.
I don't think it should stay there. Like, oh my God, I'm so guilty all of the time. It's about doing something about it.
And how did you? Could you talk about then, you know, needing to go to yoga or you know, and trying to actually get you time, especially at the beginning? How did you find that balance? Like I get dad guilt a lot as well. Dad guilt, mom guilt.
You
There's
don't
lots of
hear
guilt.
about that so much.
Well,
Dad
what is
guilt,
it? What
do
is,
you?
I guess actually maybe historically, dads just sweeping generalization worked and then drank after work. Often was their life, and they were still providing for the family, but they weren't trying to do all the other things. Whereas the modern day dad perhaps is trying to provide as well, but also is trying to be a good dad and a good husband, and
Yeah.
you know, do all the stuff as well, as good as they can be. So I think dad guilt is definitely a thing, and I think that's a big part of the reason that so many men, because they don't have language, don't overcome that guilt. And hence, at least in the UK, like the biggest killer of men between 30 and 50 is suicide, because they don't have the words and language or tools to use that. And I read somewhere, I think it was actually our former guest podcast, Chris Williamson, who is now just blown up, not because of being a guest on ours, but he's doing ridiculous now. But it was how many words the average man says a day, and how many words the average female says a day. And I don't know the study, and maybe it was over the top.
Interesting.
It was something like a man speaks about 4,000 to 5,000 words on average, and a female is like 15,000 to 20,000 words, I think. But I think something there is that men just don't vocalize. Men don't vocalize, and also aren't open to tools that are out there to actually help themselves, like yoga, like meditation. Like more men are meditating now. But you know, I just taught a recent training, and of 40 people, I think it was 5 men, and not, you know, those men were more something on the hippier side of things.
This
As
word
it were.
again.
Yeah.
This
So
word again.
yeah, hippie.
It's an interesting word.
Yeah, hippie one. Yeah, it's like a soft way of saying people that are more. I don't know what I mean by that.
Watch it.
No,
yes,
I get it, but the hippie piece. Let's put that aside.
Yeah.
This is such an important conversation, and you know, I'm raising a boy. I think you are too.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
another one
Yeah.
on the way.
Yeah.
One
Oh,
cooking.
congratulations, 2 boys. My gosh. So you'll have 3 in the house.
Yes.
Amazing. But you
Yeah.
know, the truth is, and I haven't studied this, I'm not a professional when it comes to psychology of the male, but you know, I definitely have a lot of compassion for men who have grown up, you know, with this label that, you know, you just need to be strong and you need to lead and you just need to shut up about your feelings and not cry. And you know, it's really damaging, I think, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. Like, emotions and advocating for yourself and being able to communicate are human tools. It shouldn't be whether you're a man or a woman. And I'm trying really hard to raise my boy so that he has both the confidence and the strength and the perseverance that any human needs, but that a man needs, right? As well as the confidence and connection with himself to communicate his needs and to be okay with having emotions. And it's been so hard. And why it's been hard is not because of him. It's because when he goes into school and he experiences other boys, it's challenging because not everyone's raising their boys that way. And I found myself at a place where I had to start telling him things like, just ignore it, just suck it up. You know, oh, that boy's being a jerk because of this and this and this. You know, just pretend you don't hear him. Just ignore him. That's not what I want to teach him. I want to teach him the opposite. I want him to communicate. This is what I teach him. I say, say, hey, that's not nice. Next time you do that, I'm going to tell a teacher. And if that doesn't stop, then punch him in the face. No, I'm kidding.
I was just thinking, yes,
so
that's
it
what I'll
stops.
be saying.
No, that is what I say. But, I can't really say that. So that's why I'm homeschooling, so that he is in a social environment. He does go to a homeschool school, but he's learning who he's sharing his energy with. And he's learning that he can choose the right people to share his energy with rather than just survive through school and suck it up. Just because of the way he's built, he can't just suck it up. He takes things very personally. But it's tough. I feel for you.
What is a homeschool school? I've never come across that term.
Your facial expression.
That sounds like a school.
He always looks like
A
that.
homeschool school. So, in a city like LA, we have a lot of alternative things. And so, which is a great opportunity. You can go and get like goat milk in your coffee if you want it, or maybe even breast milk. I don't know, somewhere they've got to have it. So there's a lot of families doing homeschool, and there's a lot of different just versions of what homeschool is. You have a lot of flexibility. I don't teach him. I have a teacher that comes to the house, and it's just for core subjects, like math, science, social studies, English. And so that gives us a lot of time in the rest of the week. If you think about it, he's not on anybody's schedule but his own. So he learns everything he needs to learn very quickly. I mean, in like a day or two. And then he's got the rest of the week. And so we focus on things like sports and just anything that builds his physical and emotional confidence and resilience. And this homeschool school is a school, more like a center. It's a very small school that offers a la carte classes for kids who are on a very flexible schedule, hence homeschool kids. So you can send your kid there all day. It's kind of like a college in a sense, or university, where you get to choose your classes. And you could send them there for one day, you could send them there just for the classes. So he goes 4 or 5 times a week for 4 or 5 classes a week to this school where there's a variety of ages and enigmatic children who are doing the same thing and looking for the same thing, which is like just being accepted regardless of who you are and how you fit in. And just, they really focus on that. They really focus on the social emotional growth and support. So that's a homeschool school.
Oh, you carry on.
What was it like for you growing up then? Because I'm assuming you didn't go to school if you were a pop star from 12. I'm just so intrigued by this story. Tell us everything.
Thank you. I actually was born in Australia and moved to LA when I was 3 and went to a Catholic school. So I was just an LA girl, until about 5th grade. Then I moved to Asia, and that's when all of that happened. So it was middle school, 6th grade, when it started. So it was, at first, it was really hard because I was in a new country at a new school. It's that time, in people's lives and kids' lives where kids can get really mean. So at first I was fine. I was kind of under the radar. And then when I became famous, I was picked on all of the time. So going to school was just about survival. Plus, I was falling behind because I was always absent. So for about 2 years, it was hell. I do believe that I built a lot of resilience through it. And, as a parent, I have tried to share with my kids like the things that I learned about kids being mean. Don't bark at me. Kids being mean and how to navigate that. Hence my try to work it out, then punch them in the face. That's not what I say. And then sorry, can you hear her barking?
No, not at all,
No,
actually.
actually.
Oh, good. Okay, I'll
Dogs
just
are
let her
welcome
bark.
here.
Marcella, can you let her out for me, please? Thank you. So then it was more about going to school sometimes and having a tutor. And then when my career really took off, I just had a tutor. I did return to high school for 1 year in senior year, so that I could have some normalcy in my life, go to prom and have some friends. That backfired, but it was a cute experience. It was an effort. But I do feel like in hindsight, during the time, I felt I was super lucky to have the opportunity to, write music and record and tour and just be famous. And, now when I look back, I think of it more as the opportunity to influence young people positively, because I still have a ton of fans who have basically grown up with my music. And when I started teaching yoga, then, they kind of converted over to following me for yoga. And I still go back there. I'm actually teaching. I'm performing a concert in July in Thailand, right before my teacher training in Bangkok. And I haven't done this in like 10 years. So it's just really such a beautiful time and experience in my life that has evolved to be even more beautiful. But at the time, I mean, it was wild. We're talking about mid 90s to early 2000s, like drugs, alcohol, money, this is the music world. It was wild. I'm lucky I survived it. I'm lucky that I had great therapists in my 20s and worked through, losing my childhood. I know that that's what happened. Like my parents were definitely gracious enough to let me do what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do this, but in a way, I kind of, my 20s, I was like, I wish that they protected me more. I wish that they said, you're going to lose your childhood if you do this and whatever. But it is what it is. I've come to terms with all of the trauma that came from it. And ultimately, it was a beautiful experience.
I love that.
No, 'cause Holly, I think the reason Holly's really interested in that, Holly was in a girl band as well. Holly did the girl band thing.
I was in a girl band just for 3
No
years.
way!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! In your
Good times.
teen?
No, how old was I? I was 22 to 25, something like that. Oh, best
that's a
years.
better
So
time.
yeah, I had so
Yeah.
much fun. Yeah.
Do you think?
Wow.
How have you integrated
Wait.
music?
We need to know what this was called. This girl band.
No, I'm not saying the name out loud. Don't want anyone looking it up.
Oh my god!
But they did.
Okay,
they did
were
tour.
you the
Like,
singer?
do you have Westlife? I don't think Westlife crossed over, but Westlife were a big boy
course.
band. Oh, okay. So
Yeah, I
she
know
toured with
Well,
Westlife.
because I lived in Asia, so we were all
Oh,
about everything UK. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that
toured with Westlife.
was the coolest thing we did. Yeah, performed on the London O2, which was just such an amazing memory. So yeah, I'm so happy that I had those times. But it's not really sustainable, that kind of life, though, is it? Because I'm sure you felt the same. You kind of feel like you lose a part of yourself. So much is externally focused. There was never that kind of internal inquiry that I was so desperate for. Yeah, that was my experience. I mean, absolutely loved it. But then I was led onto the yoga path as well, and life changed.
Can I ask a question to both of you? And that is, how do you navigate between both of you are performers? You were kind of holding space on stage and you were performing. So perhaps either a different version of who you are, enhanced version of who you are, or you were someone else. When you then started teaching yoga or holding space in a more spiritual setting, did you automatically default to performing and being someone else, or were you able to balance it out, or has it changed over time?
Brian, you can answer this. You're our guest.
Well, my answer is long because it requires a story.
Oh God,
So
let's go for the story.
You go first.
Oh no! Honestly, I want to hear from you.
Oh, I want to know yours. Okay, fine. So I definitely struggled with this immensely because, when you learn at such a young age, at 12, basically, that, oh, this is what people want, and all I need to do is flip a switch. I ended up in my 20s, late 20s, that is, early 30s, not having anything else. So I really struggled with creating connection with people. And I didn't realize it. I thought like, oh my gosh, I'm so good at this. It's so easy, boom, bang. And yoga is more than that. It's not just a performance. And I always say to students, I'm like, it's really not about performing at all. You can use that skill if you're having a bad day. If like, oh, you just need to phone it in. It happens. We're human, you don't always want to be like, oh, I'm so present with you. It's okay. But you don't want to do that all the time. We're mostly, our skill is about communicating and connecting with people, but also not overdoing that. Then we become the martyrs, right? We don't want to try to save everyone that we're working with either. It is still work. So I didn't actually know this, and I started teaching trainings. I didn't know this about myself, that I wasn't able to connect with people. I thought I was great at it. And started teaching trainings, and maybe about my second or third training, I do these trainings in Thailand. They're like, super immersive back in the day, 30 days. And, 30-day training is like, you go through the ringer together. And it was this one guy on this training that I found so annoying. He was so annoying to me. He kept coming up. And granted, I tell this story to my students all of the time, and one day I'm going to reconnect with him. So if he's watching this comes full circle. He wore a bandana this whole time, and like from the first day of the training, he would come to me and be like, Briohny, I'm a Tibetan bull healer, and I want you to do a session with me. You need it. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like,
red flag.
I'm leading the training. Like, go away, annoying. But this is who I was back then. Like, I really thought I knew everything. I mean, that's what ruined my marriage, really. Like, I thought I was a shit, and everything he did was wrong. Like, that was clearly not the case. But that's a whole different podcast about relationships and marriage. And so this kept happening, and he got more and more annoying, more and more annoying. Second week ends, beginning of third week, he's like, look, I need to tell you, I really feel like you're not letting people in. You have this like facade, and I see through it. And I think that I can help you, really connect, because you need to, and he's like telling me that I need him and that I'm doing something wrong. And I was like, this guy needs to leave me alone. He's a creep. He's weird. The next week rolls by. He's like, we're about to end this training. Like, come to my room and do this Tibetan bull healing. And I was like, ew, well, it's not happening. But then I do it because I'm also a people pleaser. And so I go, to his room and lie down on his bed, and he puts bowls on my body, and then it starts, and he hits the bowl, boom, he goes, Briohny. I'm like, oh my God, this is not happening right now. I'm gonna like die. I'm dying inside. I'm like bursting out laughing. Briohny, imagine there's a bubble around you. You're at the bottom of it. And each time I hit a bowl, you float up and up. And so he hits the bowl, boom, Briohny. And I'm like dying even further. I'm like, no, I can't do this. And he's like, let's feel the vibrations. Let the vibrations lift you up. Boom, again, Briohny. And I'm just like, okay, by this point, I'm just going to go along with it. And I start imagining myself floating, floating, floating. I get to the top of this bubble. And he's like, are you at the top, Briohny? And I'm like, yeah, at the top. And he said, feel it with your hands. It's really, really like hard. It's really just dense, and you're stuck, aren't you? And I was like, yes. And I start to like get into this, and I'm like, yeah, it is. He's like, break it, break it with your hands. Boom, right? They rip it open. And I'm like crying, and I come out of this experience and I give him a big hug. And it was one of my first realizations. I like cry every time I tell it, that he was right, that is actually where I was for so long. I was probably like 29. Maybe my son was born, maybe I was 30. And I will always tell this story because it's an example of how much bullshit we can tell ourselves. And that, if we trust someone, or we allow, an experience to open us up, and take that accountability, that we can, begin to have a bigger growth mindset, and all the opportunities are in front of us. So it was really the first time in my adult life that I realized that, shit, the tools that I had weren't real. They were on the outside. They weren't on the inside. I was never given the opportunity to build her up here. So I began to then.
Wow. So did that experience change you after that and the way that you taught?
It was the beginning. It was
Wow.
hard. It's been a journey, and it's still a journey. But it changed me immensely. I actually care about connecting with people because it doesn't intimidate me anymore. I realized that the reason I was so closed was because I was so insecure, and that I needed that strong facade to feel the confidence to do whatever it was in life, everything. It was even hard for me to talk to somebody, a waiter or anybody really outside in life. I used to walk into restaurants and feel like everyone was looking at me. Like, this all came from, being famous at a young age. So it helped me immensely. And thank you to Bandana Guy, because as weird as it was, he was an angel.
Wow. Sent to you, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
How do you navigate then nowadays, like the seat of a teacher and holding space for the teacher, between that and then being really open and kind of exposing yourself to people in a sense, or being friends with your students? How do you find that balance?
Being friends is just, if you become a friend with someone, you become a friend, is what I think of, right? Like, I don't try to be friends with my students. It's especially in an in-person training. But what I do try to do is be honest about who I am, and be not so much transparent, because I'm not the type of person to if I'm going through something right now, I'm not going to come on and be like, hey, you're going through this thing. Oh my God. Like, I still have the tendency to get into a little turtle shell, but I will share the things that I learned in hindsight from my experiences in life. So how I navigate that is through social media too, is like being honest that I'm human, and that I go through all the same things that you might be going through, and share my struggles, share that I'm not perfect, and share the lessons that I've learned. It's so important. And I learned that the hard way too, because Dice and I actually broke up in the middle of the training.
Wow.
And like, we were doing a 200 and a 300, and we broke up at the end of the 200 and went into the 300 the next day, announcing that we were divorcing. And wow, that's when I realized how important it is, because I built a brand off of our relationship. And it wasn't like, oh, hey, marriage is tough. It was like, look at us, we're so beautiful, and we're so flexible, and we're so, oh my God. And we had this one student like literally lose her shit over the fact that we were divorcing. Like, she stormed out of the room, and I went to see her, and I realized she was like, you guys lied about everything. You misrepresented yourself. I can't believe that, and I realized, oh my God, she doesn't think we're human. And at that moment I said, I'll refund you everything and pay for your flight home. I'm thinking, get this woman out of here. But she ended up staying. And it was actually another healing process with her, because she helped me understand how important it was to be honest that you're human.
God, I don't know how I'd react if that happened to me in a training. Not divorcing, but like if I was a student and the training started with that announcement, I'd be like, would I want my money back? Like, I think I'd probably think this is going to be a shit show. I'll come back next year.
It was a shit show. I will tell you it was, but it's important to be honest. And
Oh,
the
completely,
older I
yeah.
get, the more honest I am. And sometimes, I need the help of my younger team to be like, maybe not that honest. And like that kid, whatever.
So on that note, like on the social media note now, like on a very practical level, so back in the day, it was quite easy to do well on social media in that like
Mm,
you post a photo and you get 10,000 likes. And like,
mhm.
I would do a few, like 10 photo shoots a year, put it all on Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever it was, and then just
Batch create.
sit on the toilet, just pick a photo, write something in 2 minutes, and everyone would love it. And now we are like videographers, you need a team. Like it's quite stressful. And then you pour your heart out
Mm.
into something and it just doesn't work.
Mhm.
Like how do you navigate this now? Has the answer been just to bring people on board?
How do I navigate it? I mean, can you help me out here? Because no, I'm kidding. I do have a team, but it's not so much like at one point it was all about having a team, and you could kind of see what was trending, and it was easy in a sense. Okay, let's create this stuff and let's. But now what's hard about it is how rapidly things change and just the inability to read what you should be doing. And so how I navigate it now is just not think about that piece, like you're saying, like how well something does.
Mm.
I follow my own advice, when I teach students. I'm like, don't worry about the likes. Focus on the people that are there, because if you're using social platforms, there's a business aspect to it. If not, if you don't understand that, then it's too personal. Like, yes, we are honest. Yes, um, we engage with our community, but I'm on social for my business, not
Hmm.
just to share. Okay. And I don't feel the need, I'm going to be honest, I don't feel the need to share my daily life. I have to push myself to do it. I would rather not have to share it. But when I do share it, I do enjoy the communication with my community. So there's that aspect to it. So back to the business part, it's like, if you remember that it's about connecting with people, then you're not going to focus on the numbers. You're going to focus on the people. So
Hmm.
if 5 people comment, 20 people like, connect with those people. I always tell people, like, respond to comments, respond to DMs, check out the people who are liking your likes and liking your posts, and go and see if they're real humans and like their posts back.
I think that's
So
so
that's how I
important
deal
to
with
not be
it.
too attached to pure numbers because, like, I know that I could do, well, maybe not anymore, a topless post. Probably that would lose people now. But let's say I was in better shape. I know I could do like a topless semi-naked post, and it'd be like just very funny, and out it would go viral, but it wouldn't in any way represent my teaching. And the people it would reach are people that would never come to my yoga class anyway, or never engage with me in a training, etc. If
Interesting.
anything, I'd put people off.
Mm.
So the numbers don't mean anything. And like I always say, when I first started using Instagram back in the day, most of my followers were like teenage girls and gay guys, which is fine, great demographic, but none of that demographic would come into my yoga class particularly. It wasn't fueling my numbers. And I think it's so important as you to actually focus on the people you want to meet in real life, the people you want to connect
Mm.
with, not just
Hmm.
numbers for the sake of numbers.
Absolutely. We need to unpack that a little bit. Why was it just teenage girls
I
and
think like
gay guys
young,
following?
well, I think it was in the same
What
sense
were you
as
posting?
mainly topless photos of me doing yoga, and I was in good shape back in the day. So yeah, so
Okay.
that demographic will follow me. It was like me wearing short shorts, doing cool stuff with a man bun.
I mean, you're right. I do really like, we talked about this when we first started chatting. I do really like what you do, and
Thank you.
with the comedy, okay, satire, right? Because I think that the yoga industry needs to soften up. I mean, I've been in this industry for a long time. I started doing yoga in like 2099. Oh no, 97, and then started teaching, 15 years ago. And it's just so serious. Like, we have to think about how yoga is really not that serious. And the things that you talk about are true. We need to make light of it, especially for yoga teachers. It's like, why so serious? So I like what you do. And I
Thank you.
think that there's a way to bridge it with your teaching, just because people who want to come in, you teach trainings, right? Not just workshops,
Yeah.
right? So for students coming into a workshop or learning how to practice yoga, making sure there's a lightness to it is so important. Otherwise it becomes dogmatic, it becomes pressure. When they can't get to their mat, they feel bad. And I think you bring that, and if they do continue on their path in the yoga world, they will come across those truths. And to have the ability to have seen it from you in a funny way will make it so that it doesn't affect them. You know what I mean?
Thank
So
you.
I do love what you do. And, when people hate on it, and who cares?
They're gone.
They're not the right people for
Deleted
you.
and blocked.
Never a democracy. I am a dictator of my social media channel.
And as maybe a final question, you wrote something, a lovely post on your Instagram recently, and one of the something that you said was it's important that we make presence a choice every day. And obviously presence is so spoken about it's a huge thing in yoga, it's spoken about in the mindfulness world. What is, in your opinion, is so wonderful about the present moment that we can't find in the past or the future? Why is it so important that we are present?
Mm. Oh, that's a good question. I guess it's because, you learn that from experience for the most part, right? I have a daughter in college. So when I look back at like all of the years that flew by, and the years that didn't fly by, I can't get them back. So it's like the feeling of, ooh, I want to be present, because these experiences are so, even if they're tough, they're so worthwhile being present in. And actually the tough experiences are the ones I learn most from. So time flies, I guess, is one of the reasons to be present. Also, that maybe that happiness is in the present. We spend a lot of our time and lives really wishing for things, working for things that um, we lose out sometimes on what was already there. Being present helps us grow. And I spoke a little bit about the tough times. Being present in the tough times is important. It's where you really learn your lessons, but also in like growing your business. And I feel like for me, this is where it really hits home, is I've had so many beautiful opportunities in my life, starting from 12 years old when it comes to work, right? And when I look back on that period, I wasn't old enough to understand what being present could have given me. And what it does is that it allows for you to realize when you hit a wave and you're going up, or to, realize that how to take advantage of those opportunities, how to manage your energy so that you don't look back and regret it. And then goes the same for the tough times in your work. So being present is really just all about that, right? All the things that I said. It's like how you can look back and feel happy.
I love that. Thank
And
you.
it's a bit of a quick fire question. Is there any quote, lyric, any simply book you're
Mantra.
reading, a mantra that is meaning a lot to you at the moment?
Wow. Yeah, it's Young Pueblo's new book, Jung, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and it's The Path Forward. And it's just a bunch of threads or quotes about growth and change. And it means a lot to me right now because I'm going through an interesting time in a relationship. So he's growing, he's changing, so am I, and we're trying to do it on parallel paths and end up together. So it's that's been very helpful.
I feel like we need to do a round 2 where we just talk about relationships.
Yes. You know, that's what it all goes back to, in my opinion, right? All the growth that we go through is to deepen our relationship with ourselves, continue to understand ourselves so that we can build relationships with build strong and compassionate relationships with our loved ones.
Thank you so much. And tell us what you have going on at the moment. Where can people find you, and what have you got going on or coming up?
This is my plug.
Yeah.
Plug away.
Well, you can find me on Yoga with Briohny on Instagram. My company is Aligned, and we're also on Instagram, Yoga with Aligned, and all of our information is there. Online training, educational products, and an in-person training in Thailand every year this July.
Thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Well, that sounds like awesome. Training in Thailand.
Should we go?
You are always welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Honestly unbalanced.